Hey you guys, it is storming out here. It literally came out of nowhere. Today's going to be a longer video. I wanted to cover goal setting because it's a topic that comes up very frequently. I get emails all the time with people asking, these are the things I want to do. Is it reasonable? Is it realistic? How can I figure out what is reasonable and what is realistic? So it's kind of complicated, which is why I like walking individuals through, because it honestly depends on the person. But I'm going to go over briefly some main points that I like to go over when I'm talking to somebody and when I'm getting to know them, and things that I look for and questions that I ask that if you don't have a coach or maybe you're in the middle of coaching and you want some insight into how the mind works and how the best way to proceed with your training program, you can kind of use this as a reference. So the first thing I do is I ask you, what are your goals? Just list them all for me. So usually I hear, I want to gain muscle, I want to lose fat, I want to do a pull-up, I want to get better at running, I want to do a competition. And so those are good things to know about an individual. Okay, I know that this person, if you picked out a competition, this is the day of your competition, or this is the day of your wedding. I know the person's basic stats, right? So the next thing is going to be, where are you at now, and how do we quantify where you want to be in the future? So do you guys see the power flickering? This is crazy. Welcome to the South. So I know you guys have probably heard me say this, and I learned this in my training out in one of the, oh my God, you guys have to see this. This is so crazy. I'm going to show you. Can you guys see? It is coming down so hard. Bernard. Sorry, distracted by the crazy storm. So I like to go by that SMART method, and you'll find online, if you write SMART method for goal setting, you will see a bunch of little pictures, infographics about how to get to your goals. I'm going to get a little bit more specific than that. But basically, I think it starts with specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. So we'll start with specific. So I don't want to hear, I want to lose fat. I want to hear, okay, this is how lean I want to be. If it's a certain body fat percentage, if it's a certain clothing size, or if it's stage ready, or if it's weight loss for a competition, for a powerlifting meet, for a weight class, etc. So I want to lose weight. I want to be in the 65 kilo weight class. There we go. That's specific. Measurable. So we have to have a way to measure it. So if it's a weight, then it's a weight class. If it's a body fat percent, we use a DEXA, or we use a BOD-POD, or we do a hydrostatic weighing. If it's competition lean, that's a little bit more subjective. However, we can say, okay, you want to look good on competition day, so this is how you're supposed to look, and we'll look for that through pictures. If it's something, so we basically want to have a way to measure. Like if it's your wedding, then you want to, okay, I want to fit in this size of wedding dress. So it has to be measurable. Attainable. Now, attainable is the one that we want to focus on the most when we're having this discussion here. Is this realistic? Is this attainable? Are you going to be able to do it in the time frame that you have? And these all kind of tie together. So if you have, your wedding is in June, your competition is in May, you want to do a let's say a bikini competition in between those, or right before or right after, then we have to look at, okay, is there enough time to do all of these the way you want to do them, or will one or the other suffer? So that's kind of where I get into prioritizing your list. A lot of us want to do everything at once. I think things are falling. I think the wind is officially destroying things. That's what that was. Hopefully I'll be able to get through this video, but we might have to go hide. So, things are definitely falling over. Oh my gosh. This is, you guys, I might need to come back and finish this video. I'm going to try to truck through it though. Okay, so once you have your list of things, you want to prioritize your list. So I ask people, okay, give me your priorities, and then what I go in and do is I have their 1 through 5 or 1 through 3, and I look at what can be done at the same time. So if you want to, I made this list of 5 things, and honestly, I've heard 5 more than that for number of goals someone wants to accomplish. I want to lose weight. I want to compete in powerlifting. I want to gain muscle. I want to get faster at running. I want to be able to do pull-ups, etc., etc. So I say, please prioritize that for me. What is the most important to you? They say, well, I want to lose weight. I want to get lean. Okay, what's the second thing that's most important to you? Well, you know, I really want to do powerlifting. Okay. I'd like to gain muscle. Okay. And then I want to, you know, getting fast at running and doing pull-ups is last. So I look at that and I say, okay, where are you with your weight? Because this depends on the individual at this point. Where are you with your weight? How far are you from your weight class? Are you trying to go down a weight class, or are you staying in your class? Usually the answer is, oh, I want to go down a weight class. Okay, so let's focus on competing in powerlifting, losing weight to get in your weight class, and if muscle gain happens along the way, then great. The way we'll try to maximize that is by taking our time in our deficit if we have time. So that's where it has to be time sensitive and attainable in that time frame. And usually the guideline is about 1 to 2 pounds of body weight a week. That's a little bit for me, even on the high end. I would probably aim for 1 or 2 pounds if I weren't having the person compete in a strength sport. I would have them do that if they were more bodybuilding or if they were just general weight loss. But if you're competing in a strength sport, I would recommend as low as half a pound to a pound of body weight a week. It's going to keep you more stable in terms of your leverages, and it's going to be better for your energy levels during your training sessions. So recommendations for powerlifting or any strength sports like weightlifting or strongman, I would do half a pound to a pound at most per week of weight loss, leading up to your competition. And then for non-strength sports like bodybuilding and general fitness, things like that, just general weight loss, 1 to 2 pounds, maybe even more in some cases. Some people could lose upwards of 3 pounds and mitigate much of the muscle loss that comes with that. So, but that's on the extreme end. And that's not every week. Obviously, you guys aren't going to always have the same number of weight loss in pounds every week. The body tends to fluctuate, and then women fluctuate with their hormonal cycles and things like that. So it's not as predictable and not as exact like that. But so I couple goals together. So weight loss and powerlifting can go together. Weight gain for muscle gain and powerlifting can go together. Alternatively, you can do weight loss with running and pull-ups. So weight loss and pull-ups go together very well. If you lose a lot of body weight, you're more likely to be able to do pull-ups and do more of them. And then getting faster at running, obviously, if you're trying to run, you're going to be burning a lot of calories. You're going to be more likely to be able to create a deficit. And so it might facilitate fat loss at the same time, and then you'd also be able to do pull-ups. Now, If you're going to be trying to get faster at running, I wouldn't also try to do another sport. I wouldn't also try to do powerlifting. I wouldn't also try to do bodybuilding. So running is a completely different category of its own. So I'm not going to get too into it, but I don't recommend running for if you want to get into really, really lean body fat levels. I recommend against running. An easy way to picture this is picture your favorite marathon runner. They're usually not very lean in the way that we in sports like to see them. They're usually very, they lack muscle definition, they lack musculature, and they carry some fat. And this is because, and I'm talking endurance running. If you're an endurance runner, your body wants to conserve fat because fat is the best fuel source for longer distance running. So typically you don't see favorable, and when I say favorable, I mean like bodybuilding style physiques from runners. Now you can, if you're just doing like something local and you're doing like casual running, like a local bodybuilding competition, and then you're just doing like a mile or 2 miles or 5 miles, casually doing 5Ks or 5Ks or 10Ks, you should be okay. But I'm talking in extreme sports like marathon running and then national level bodybuilding don't really go together. So just a little tangent. So I look at, step 1, make a list of your goals. Step 2, prioritize your goals. Step 3, couple your goals. So see what can be done together. And then be realistic. Okay, how much weight am I going to lose? Based on the numbers that I gave you, 0.5 pound to 1 pound for strength sports, 1 to 2 pounds a week for non-strength sports. Where is that going to land you in a few weeks or in a few months? Another thing to note is fat loss takes a lot less time than muscle gain, meaning that you can go into an extreme deficit and lose a lot of body fat in a very short period of time, but you can't have the same effects with muscle gain. Like you're not going to be able to eat a lot of food and train really, really hard and gain muscle. There's a cap to what your body's going to do because of what your body can recover from. So with that being said, I do recommend minimum of 6 months for a gain, for a bulking period, and a maximum of about 3 months for a cutting period. So you want to do these phases and then go into maintenance for a little while, or if you're bulking for a really long time, you can do mini cuts. If you're cutting for a really long time, you can go into maintenance for a little while. And this kind of helps get you back into homeostasis and not allow your body to compensate for what you're doing or to plateau. So those are my general recommendations. And judging by body fat percentage, so generally speaking, you can lose body fat and gain muscle at the same time if you're relatively new. A lot of the people who come to me are not new at lifting. Usually they've been lifting for at least a couple years, which at that point you're considered an intermediate. And I know a lot of my people have been lifting for even longer than that, like 5 or more years. They're more advanced. I would separate your goals at that point. Give me 1 sec. The storm's crazy. Are we on? Okay, I'm back. So I want to go more into detail here about the specifics of sports, powerlifting specifically, how to determine what's a realistic goal for your competition, and how you can kind of determine that. So for a beginner in powerlifting, and I would consider anyone a beginner if they're just starting out, up to about 2 years, you should be able to add about 5 pounds to your lifts each week. Now, if you have 12 weeks until your competition, it would be reasonable to say you could put 50 pounds or 60 pounds on each lift leading into your meet. Now that seems like a lot, but you're taking a new person and let's say they're squatting 100 pounds. Is it unreasonable for them to squat 150 or 160 pounds in a 12-week period? It's not. However, if you take someone who's squatting 250 pounds, are they likely to squat 300 pounds in 10 or 12 weeks? That's not as likely. That person's probably an intermediate lifter. So at that point, you have to kind of determine what's realistic. And once you're not able to add those 5 pounds each week to your lifts, you can reasonably expect to put on about 5 pounds every cycle. So that's a drastic difference. Instead of aiming to put on 5 pounds from Monday to next Monday, you're going to aim to put on 5 pounds from this Monday to maybe 3 weeks into your training cycle. So you'll start on a Monday, and then maybe not the next week, but the following week, you'll have another like PR where you put 5 pounds on your lift, and then you do a deload and you start again. So that's what I would kind of do in terms of goal setting. I would say, okay, I'll put on 5 pounds every training cycle, like that. And then once you stop being able to do that, then I would say, okay, I'll put on 5 pounds from 1 month to the next month. I'll put on 5 pounds from 1 month to the 3rd month. So I would keep expanding based on your familiarity with your own PRs, kind of tracking. And this is why I implement a tracking worksheet into your Google Sheet spreadsheets. So you guys can kind of see, okay, on this day I did this PR, and this day I did that PR. It helps me to kind of navigate, okay, how strong are you getting and how fast, so that I could predict. And this is the way you can, if you're coaching, you can predict your clients' numbers when it comes time to do their meet. You can say, okay, if this person has been PRing every 3rd week, then I could predict that they will PR at or above that number during their competition. And then you could set their 2nd attempt as that PR number. And then their 3rd would be even beyond that. In case they have more than that in the tank, they can try for that. So that's how I would kind of gauge it. There are some people who seem like they PR 5 pounds or more a week, every week, and they're advanced and they're super strong, and my guess would be that they are enhanced. I can't be sure. I don't know. Maybe they're genetic freaks, but typically the case you see is, what I told you. So in terms of that, that's kind of the way I would go. For muscle gain, I think there's a good chart out there. I would have to find it. I would say half as fast as fat loss in terms of numbers. So if you're aiming for 0.5 pound a week of fat loss, I would aim for half of that. So 1/4 pound of weight gain per week for your bulking cycle. So it would be about 1 pound a month that you would want to gain on the lower end. So 1 to 2. Benson, Bernard, come here. What's going on? Is the storm scary? So I would aim for 1 to 2 pounds of body weight per month. So if you think about it, half of that should be probably fat, half of it's going to be muscle. So if you want to gain 5 pounds of muscle, you're going to want to bulk for like 10 months, right? And that's for only 5 pounds of muscle. Now this isn't taking into consideration if you're coming back from a long break and things like that. So another tool I like to use is visualization. So I like to plan out a year in advance for an athlete, which is one of the reasons I really am a fan of athletes signing up for year-long programs, because it helps me work backwards. So I'll take a client Let's say, you know, her name's Julia, and she wants to, a year from now, compete in her first powerlifting competition. And I say powerlifting because I feel like that's most of my people on here are powerlifting people. So I would take her and I would say, okay, it's February 12th, 2019. February 12th, 2020, for example, let's pretend it's on a weekend. She wants to compete in her first powerlifting competition. How are we going to go backwards from that? And what can we expect her programming to look like, and what can I expect her numbers to look like? And so we work backwards, and I work in cycles of about 3-month cycles. So that's about 4 training cycles we can have. So we might do a foundational training cycle. So let's say it's her first first competition. We do 3 months of foundational work, which is, you know, familiarization, technique, injury prevention, things like that. We do 2 testing cycles. So the first testing cycle is going to be like a train up that closely resembles what she might do for a powerlifting competition. And then at the end, we can do testing like an AMRAP or a rep max or a max test. So that testing cycle, the testing would resemble closely to whatever we were working on in that cycle. So if we're working on fives, so 5 reps, we would probably do 5 rep max testing or do an AMRAP that will land her around 5 reps. Now, second testing cycle is, so first testing cycle is more of like a familiarization where they're getting used to, okay, how does this work? What am I doing? How am I recovering? Okay, we're figuring all that out. So that's you and me in a client-coach relationship, trying to figure out what works best for you. Is it too many training days? Is it too little? Is the food enough? Is it what's happening with your body composition? So testing. The third training cycle might be another testing where we're getting more used to testing under higher loads. And all this while you're working on technique. And so as you get closer, obviously your specificity increases. You're doing more of the main lifts, less of the auxiliary movements. And then you do another test phase, either again, AMRAPs, maybe the AMRAP will land you around 3 reps, or you would do a 3 rep max testing, something like that. And then for your last training cycle, you would do your train up. So it's basically your periodization that would get you to your taper and your peak, and then you would do your max effort at your powerlifting meet. So that's kind of like how I pick a goal and I work backwards from that goal. So it gets broken down into like your whole overreaching goal and then your smaller goals in between. And the testing phases also improve motivation and things like that, because it's such a year is a long time. So it's nice to know where you're at as an athlete. It's nice for the coach to know, which I already pretty much have an idea, but sometimes it's a motivational factor. And I'll talk a little bit about motivation in another video. I don't want to make this video too long. If you guys have any questions about anything I've said, I know this is a really long video, but I want it to be really thorough. Post your comments below. I'll answer any questions you guys may have about your own goal setting, or if there's a specific topic you'd like me to cover, let me know and I will cover that in another video. All right, guys, I think the storm stopped, which so crazy. The storm went on the entire time I was doing this video, and all of a sudden it went away. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching if you got this far, and thank you for subscribing. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.